I kept the winning lottery ticket inside my grandmother's silver locket. Every morning for the past 3 weeks, I'd open my jewelry box just to make sure it was still there. The numbers were burned into my memory. 7, 14, 23, 31, 42, Mega Ball 9, $3.2 million. I hadn't told a soul. Those numbers weren't random. July 14th, the day I gave birth to Raphael. The 23rd, his college graduation day. 31, his wedding day. 42, his age now. I'd played those numbers every week for 5 years, a ritual that made me feel connected to my son during the 18 months he'd forgotten I existed. The morning I won, I didn't even check the ticket right away. I'd bought it at the corner store after my Thursday book club meeting, tucked it in my purse, and forgotten about it until the following Tuesday when Mrs. Kowalski from 3B mentioned someone in our zip code had won big. I checked the numbers on my laptop, checked them again. Then a third time, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the ticket. I should have felt joy. Instead, I felt terror, because I knew the moment anyone found out, everything would change. People would look at me differently, treat me differently, want things from me. And Raphael would suddenly remember he had a mother. So I slipped that ticket into my grandmother's locket and closed it tight, like I was locking away a secret that could either save me or destroy me. I just didn't know which yet. Now, standing in my small kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd raised Raphael alone after his father walked out when he was 6, the same kitchen where I'd stretched every dollar, packed school lunches, celebrated his achievements with grocery store cakes. I stared at that locket and wondered what to do. The kettle whistled. I poured hot water over the same Earl Grey tea bag I'd been using for 3 days. Waste not, want not. 43 years as a librarian had taught me that. 43 years of helping people find what they claimed to be looking for had also taught me something else. How to read between the lines. How to see what people were really asking for, what they were really hiding. I'd need that skill soon. I just didn't know it yet. The knock came on a Thursday afternoon, not gentle, tentative, like whoever was on the other side wasn't quite sure they wanted to be there. I set down my teacup, my heart doing something strange in my chest. I wasn't expecting anyone. My book club wasn't until tomorrow. Mrs. Kowalski always called first. When I opened the door, there stood Raphael, my son, my beautiful boy, 42 years old now, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. His Apple Watch caught the hallway light. I could smell his cologne, something expensive, designer, Dior maybe. Behind him stood Elizabeth, his wife of 4 years. She held a small orchid in a ceramic pot, wearing Lululemon yoga pants that I knew cost at least $200. I'd seen them in the window of that store downtown I'd never dream of entering. "Mom," Raphael pulled me into a hug that felt practiced, rehearsed. "We've been terrible. We should have visited sooner." 18 months. That's how long it had been since I'd seen my son. 18 months of silence, of declined calls, of "Sorry, Mom. Work is crazy" text messages that came hours after I'd reached out. And now here he was, on my doorstep, with that carefully arranged smile people wear when they want something. "Marietta," Elizabeth stepped forward. Not Mom. She'd never called me Mom, not even in the beginning. "We've missed you so much." I'd learned to read lies the way librarians read books, but I smiled anyway. "Come in. Please, let me make tea." They followed me into my 1-bedroom apartment. Raphael's eyes swept the room like a searchlight. The old television I'd bought secondhand in 2008. The sofa I'd reupholstered myself 20 years ago, the fabric starting to wear thin again. The curtains I'd sewn from clearance fabric, now faded by the sun, the bookshelf overflowing with library discards I'd rescued. "Your place is exactly the same," Raphael said, and something in his voice wasn't nostalgia. It was assessment. Like he was taking inventory. I poured tea into the mismatched cups Raphael used to drink hot chocolate from as a child. His small hands wrapped around the warm ceramic, his feet swinging from the kitchen chair because they couldn't reach the floor yet. I remembered everything. Did he? "How have you been, Mom?" Raphael asked, but his eyes were still scanning the apartment. They lingered on the water stain on the ceiling I couldn't afford to fix, the crack in the wall I'd covered with a calendar. "I'm well," I said. "Busy with my book club, volunteering at the library, the usual." "That's wonderful," Elizabeth said, but she wasn't listening. Her perfectly manicured nails tapped against her phone screen. She'd checked it 4 times since sitting down. We talked about surface things, Raphael's pharmaceutical sales job. Having my best year yet, actually. Elizabeth's Instagram yoga page, almost at 50,000 followers. Their recent trip to Napa. The wine country is just stunning this time of year. They didn't ask about my life. Not really. Raphael asked how I was feeling, but when I mentioned the arthritis in my left knee, he nodded and immediately changed the subject to his new car. 2 hours passed like that. Small talk with people who felt like strangers wearing familiar faces. As they were leaving, Raphael hugged me again. "We'll come by more often, Mom. I promise. We've been so caught up in our own lives we forgot what's important." Elizabeth kissed my cheek. Family is everything. I closed the door behind them and stood very still in my quiet apartment. Something felt wrong. Not wrong like anger. Wrong like sadness. Like grief for something I hadn't lost yet, but knew I would. My grandmother's locket sat in its box on my dresser. $3.2 million, locked away. I'd won the lottery 3 weeks ago, and I'd never felt more alone. They came back 3 days later, then again 5 days after that. Then it became twice a week, like clockwork. Tuesdays and Saturdays, around 3 in the afternoon. Raphael would bring takeout. Expensive Thai food, sushi, pho from that trendy place downtown. But he never asked what I wanted. Just showed up with whatever he and Elizabeth felt like eating. "We got you the spring rolls?" Elizabeth would say, pushing the container toward me. I'm allergic to shrimp. Had been my whole life. Raphael knew this. The spring rolls had shrimp. "Oh, I'm so sorry," Elizabeth would say when I reminded her. I completely forgot. Except she'd forgotten 3 times now. During their 4th visit, I excused myself to use the bathroom. Old trick from my library days, when patrons would have private conversations near the circulation desk. I'd busy myself with quiet tasks nearby. People forget you're listening when you're not looking at them. I left the water running, but stood by the door, barely breathing. "How much longer do we have to keep this up?" Elizabeth's voice, low and impatient. "As long as it takes." "Stephen," barely a whisper. I pressed closer to the door. "The property values in this neighborhood are insane now. This building is going condo. She's sitting on a gold mine and doesn't even know it." My heart stopped. "She lives like she's poor," Elizabeth continued. "Does she even have any savings? She worked for 43 years. Where did all that money go?" "Certainly not on this furniture." Raphael's voice. My son's voice. My skin crawls every time I sit on that couch. I gripped the bathroom counter. The cool porcelain was the only thing keeping me upright. "Just a little longer," Raphael said. "We need her to trust us first. Then we can start suggesting she move to that senior place. Once she sells, I flushed the toilet, ran the water loud, looked at myself in the mirror over the sink. My hands were shaking. When I came back, they were both smiling at me. "Mom," "We were just talking," Raphael said. "Elizabeth and I want to help you. This apartment is getting old. The neighborhood is changing. Have you thought about what you'll do when the lease converts?" I hadn't known it was converting. The letter from the management company was probably buried somewhere in my mail pile. "Converts?" I asked, keeping my voice small, confused, playing the part they expected. Elizabeth leaned forward, her face full of concern that didn't reach her eyes. "We have this wonderful idea. There's a lovely senior community about 20 minutes from our place. Beautiful grounds, activities, meal service. It might be perfect for you." "I don't need activities," I said quietly. "I have my book club, my friends." Of course, Raphael waved his hand like he was shooing away a fly. "But think about it. No more worrying about maintenance, about cooking, about being alone." Being alone. As if I hadn't been alone for 18 months while they'd forgotten about me. As if I hadn't been alone every birthday, every holiday, every Sunday afternoon when I'd sit by the phone hoping it would ring. And, Elizabeth added brightly, if you sold this place, you'd have money for the community. It's an investment in your happiness. Sold this place, my home, where I'd lived for 37 years, where I'd raised my son, where Raphael took his first steps, lost his first tooth, cried over his first heartbreak while I held him on that couch Elizabeth found so disgusting. I'll think about it, I said. After they left, I sat in my worn chair, the one that knew the exact shape of my body after all these years, and stared at my grandmother's silver locket. The lottery ticket inside felt heavier now. I needed to know the truth. Not the truth I just overheard in fragments, in whispers through a bathroom door. I needed to know for certain who my son really was, because right now, looking at that locket, I realized something terrifying. I had no idea. The next morning, I called Howard Brennan. He'd been my late husband's college roommate, had practiced law for 45 years, and was the only person I knew who could help me with what I was about to do. "Howard," I said when he answered, my voice steadier than I felt. "This is Marietta Goldwyn. I need your help. It's about my son." There was a pause. Then, "Tell me everything." And I did. Howard Brennan's office smelled like old books and leather, comforting, like the library where I'd spent most of my adult life. He sat across from me, 72 years old with kind eyes that had seen too much of humanity's worst and somehow still believed in its best. "Start from the beginning," he said, pouring me tea from a china pot his late wife had loved. So I told him everything. The lottery ticket, $3.2 million hidden in my grandmother's locket. Raphael's 18-month absence followed by sudden, persistent visits. The conversation I'd overheard about property values and trust and waiting. The way my son looked at my apartment like he was calculating its worth instead of remembering his childhood. Howard listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "Marietta," he finally said, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with yourself. What is it you really want to know?" I stared at my tea. "I want to know if my son loves me, or if he just loves what he thinks I'm worth." "And if it's the latter? Then I need to know that, too." Howard nodded slowly. "I have 3 children. They call every Sunday. They visit for no reason. They remember that I hate cilantro and love crossword puzzles. They know my life." He paused. "I tell you this not to make you feel worse, but so you understand. I know what real family love looks like, and I know what you're describing, isn't it?" Tears burned behind my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. "However," Howard continued, "you're right to want proof. Right now you have fragments, pieces of a conversation. It could be innocent, could be manipulated by Elizabeth, could be—" "It's not innocent," I said quietly. "I know my son, Howard, or I thought I did. The way he looked at my apartment. He was doing inventory." Howard leaned back in his chair. "Then we need to give you certainty. And I have an idea, though you're not going to like it. Tell me. We create a situation where Raphael thinks you have nothing to gain from. We make you appear financially desperate. Then we watch what he does when he believes there's no inheritance, no property value, no golden ticket." My stomach twisted. "You want me to test my own son. I want to give you the truth." Howard's voice was gentle but firm. "Right now, you're in limbo. You can claim that lottery money, move forward with your life, but you'll always wonder, did I misjudge Raphael? Could our relationship have been saved? This way you'll know. Absolutely. No doubts." "And if I'm wrong?" I whispered. "If he really does care, and this test destroys our relationship?" Howard reached across the desk and took my hand. "Marietta, if Raphael truly loves you, nothing could destroy that relationship. He'll fight for you. He'll find solutions. He'll prove that you matter more than money." He squeezed my fingers. "But if he doesn't, wouldn't you rather know now, before you're truly vulnerable?" I thought about my grandmother's locket, About all that money, sitting there like a secret that could either save me or condemn me to a lifetime of wondering if anyone loved me for myself. What do I need to do? The letter arrived at my apartment 5 days later on official letterhead from Riverside Property Management. Howard had contacts everywhere, favors owed from 45 years of practicing law. The letter looked absolutely legitimate. Dear Ms. Goldwyn, as previously communicated, Riverside Apartments will be converting to condominium ownership effective December 1st. As a long-term tenant, you have the first right of purchase for Unit 3C at the pre-construction price of $350,000. This offer expires in 6 months. If you decline to purchase, you will need to vacate the premises by the conversion date. Please contact our office to discuss your options. I read it 3 times, my hands shaking even though I knew it was fake. $350,000. A fortune I didn't have. Or at least a fortune Raphael thought I didn't have. The trap was set. Now I just had to spring it. I waited a week, letting the letter sit on my kitchen counter where Raphael would see it during his next visit. I rehearsed my lines in the mirror, practicing the tremor in my voice, the fear in my eyes. 43 years of reading stories to children had taught me something about performance. On Friday morning, I called Raphael. "Honey," I said, letting my voice crack just slightly, "I need to talk to you about something. Can you come over?" "Is everything okay, Mom?" There was something in his voice, not quite concern, anticipation. "Just, please come. Today, if you can." He arrived 45 minutes later. Elizabeth came too. They always came together now, I realized, like they didn't trust each other to handle me alone. They sat on my couch, the one that made Elizabeth's skin crawl, and arranged their faces into matching expressions of worry. "Mom, what's wrong?" Raphael asked. I handed him the letter with trembling hands, watched his face as he read. For 3 seconds, I saw his true reaction. His face fell, actually fell, like a curtain dropping. His lips pressed into a thin line. Then, just as quickly, he rearranged his features into concern. But I'd seen it. That flash of disappointment. $350,000, Elizabeth said, taking the letter from Raphael. Mom, that's a lot of money." "I know," I let my voice break. "I don't have that kind of money. I thought I'd have my pension and Social Security enough to keep renting. But now—" "What about your savings?" Raphael asked. "Maybe 30,000 from my retirement account." "It's not nearly enough." I watched them exchange a glance, a whole conversation in that single look. "Mom," Raphael said slowly, "I wish I could help, but Elizabeth and I are stretched thin. Our mortgage, the car payments. The housing market has been brutal." "I understand," I said quickly. "I wasn't asking for money. I just needed to tell someone. I'm scared. I don't know what to do." This was the moment, the test. If Raphael loved me, he'd problem solve. He'd help me find solutions, loans, financial aid, family resources. He'd fight for me to keep my home. Instead, Elizabeth touched Raphael's arm. Maybe that senior community really is the right move. Fresh start. You wouldn't have to worry about maintenance or property taxes or— "Yes," Raphael jumped in, his voice brightening. "We'll help you look, Mom. There are some really nice places, activities, new friends, meal service. It won't be so bad." Won't be so bad. Like I was a problem being solved, not a person losing her home. "I've lived here 37 years, I said softly. "Raphael, you grew up here. Don't you want me to stay?" "Of course I do, Mom. But sometimes life forces us to make changes. This could be good for you. Less stress, more support. Support. From the son who hadn't called in 18 months until he thought I might have property value. They stayed 20 more minutes. Brought out brochures for senior living communities they just happened to have in their car. All 40 to 60 minutes away from their house. Far enough to be inconvenient to visit regularly. "We can drive you out to look at them this weekend," Elizabeth offered. "Think about it, Mom," Raphael said as they left. "I know it's scary, but we'll help you through this. You're not alone." I closed the door and stood there, listening to their footsteps fade down the hallway. Then I heard them stop, heard their voices, muffled but audible. "Thank God," Elizabeth said. "Can you imagine if she'd asked us for $300,000? Raphael laughed. Actually laughed. "She'd have better luck winning the lottery." I pressed my forehead against the door, my grandmother's locket heavy around my neck. The test was over. I knew the truth now. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, watching car headlights sweep across the water-stained plaster. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Raphael's face when he read that letter. That flash of disappointment before he remembered to look concerned. My phone buzzed. A text from Raphael. "Thinking about you, Mom. We'll figure this out together. Love you." 3 words at the end of a text. Love you. Not even I love you. Just the abbreviated version people typed without thinking. When had that happened? When had my son started loving me in shorthand? I thought about when he was 6 after his father left. How Raphael would crawl into bed with me in the middle of the night crying because he missed his dad. How I'd hold him and promise that we'd be okay, just the 2 of us. How I'd work double shifts at the library, taking on extra cataloging projects just to afford his soccer cleats and field trip fees. I thought about his high school graduation, how I'd sat in those bleachers bursting with pride as he walked across the stage. How he'd hugged me afterward and said, "Mom, I couldn't have done this without you." I thought about his wedding day, walking him down the aisle because there was no father to do it. How he'd squeezed my hand and whispered, "Thank you for everything." When had that boy disappeared? Or had he ever really existed the way I remembered? My phone rang, startling me out of the memories. It was nearly midnight. Howard's name on the screen. "Did I wake you?" he asked. "No, I couldn't sleep." I figured. How did it go? I told him everything. The letter, their reaction, the conversation I'd overheard afterward. My voice sounded hollow even to my own ears. "I'm sorry, Marietta," Howard said quietly. "Don't be. I needed to know." I paused. "What do I do now?" Now you claim your lottery ticket. You secure your future. And you decide what kind of relationship, if any, you want with Raphael going forward." "Howard, my voice broke. He's my son. How do I just walk away from my son?" "You're not walking away from him. He walked away from you 18 months ago. You're just finally accepting it." The truth of that hit me like a physical blow. "There's something else you should know," Howard continued. "I did some digging. The building management company, they've been in contact with a real estate developer named Daniel Whitmore. He's been buying up properties in your neighborhood, trying to accelerate condo conversions." "What does that have to do with Raphael?" "Maybe nothing, maybe everything. But I'd like to keep investigating if you'll allow it." "Do whatever you need to do." After we hung up, I got out of bed and went to my jewelry box, opened it, took out my grandmother's locket. Inside was a ticket worth $3.2 million. Outside was a son who'd shown me exactly how much I was worth to him. $350,000 of perceived property value. That's what it had taken to bring him back into my life. The lottery money would set me free, but it was the truth that would save me. 3 days passed. Raphael called once, a brief conversation about nothing. "Just checking in, Mom. Have you thought about those communities we showed you?" He didn't ask how I was sleeping, didn't ask if I was scared, didn't offer to come over and just sit with me, the way a son who loved his mother might do when she was facing homelessness. On the 4th day, Raphael and Elizabeth came over unannounced. I was folding laundry, trying to keep my hands busy so I wouldn't obsess over the test results I already knew. "We were in the neighborhood," Raphael said. Another lie. They lived 40 minutes away. Elizabeth went to use the bathroom. She'd been drinking those giant Starbucks cups lately, always needing to use my bathroom within 10 minutes of arriving. I'd noticed the pattern. Raphael and I sat in awkward silence. He checked his phone, checked it again. From the bathroom I heard Elizabeth's voice. Low, but not quite low enough. "No, trust me, it's happening. She's going to have to sell or move anyway." I looked at Raphael. He hadn't noticed, too engrossed in whatever was on his screen. Elizabeth continued. "Once she's in that facility, the condo is ours eventually. Stephen's an only child. My blood turned to ice. The best part is, she thinks we care. A laugh. Cruel. Casual. Stephen is so good at the devoted son act. Raphael's name. She'd said Raphael, but the voice had said Stephen. No, I'd misheard. Stress. Lack of sleep. But the words, those I'd heard clearly. I stood up so fast my chair scraped against the floor. Raphael looked up, startled. I walked to the bathroom door. It was slightly ajar. Elizabeth stood with her back to the door, phone pressed to her ear. Another month and she'll be signing whatever we put in front of her. The lawyer said. I pushed the door open. Elizabeth spun around, phone still at her ear. Her face went white. I have to go, she said into the phone and hung up. We stared at each other for a long moment. Get out of my house, I said. My voice was calm, dead calm. The voice that used to quiet rowdy teenagers in the library with a single look. Marietta, you don't understand what you heard. Get out. Take Raphael with you. Now. Raphael appeared in the doorway. Mom, what's going on? I looked at my son. Really looked at him. This man who'd grown in my body, who I'd sacrificed everything for, who'd once been the center of my entire world. You need to leave, I said. Both of you. Mom, talk to me. Raphael reached for my arm. I stepped back. There's nothing to say. You've made everything very clear. Elizabeth grabbed Raphael's arm. Raphael, let's just go. No. Raphael's face was flushing. Mom, this is ridiculous. Whatever you think you heard, I heard enough. You're being paranoid. Am I? I walked to my purse, pulled out my phone. Should I call back whoever Elizabeth was just talking to? The lawyer she mentioned? The one who's apparently waiting for me to sign something? Raphael's face changed. The mask slipped, just for a second, and I saw something underneath. Not love, not even guilt. Frustration. Anger that I'd discovered the game before it was over. Fine, he said. Fine. You want us gone? We're gone. But don't come crying to us when you're homeless and alone. They left. The door slammed hard enough to rattle the frames on my walls. I stood in my empty apartment, surrounded by my worn furniture and faded curtains and 37 years of memories, and I waited to feel something. But all I felt was numb. I picked up my phone and called Howard. I need to claim the lottery, I said. Now. Today. I need to claim it and get out of here. I'll meet you at the lottery office in an hour, Howard said. Marietta? I'm proud of you. After I hung up, I opened my grandmother's locket one last time. The ticket crinkled softly as I pulled it out. $3.2 million. It should have felt like winning. Instead, it felt like freedom. The lottery office was nothing like I'd imagined. No balloons, no champagne, just fluorescent lights and government-issue furniture. A woman named Patricia verified my ticket 3 times, her scanner beeping each time like a heartbeat. Congratulations, Ms. Goldwyn, she said, but her voice was flat, bored. She probably said this every week. After taxes and choosing the lump sum, you'll receive $1,900,000. $1,900,000. The number didn't feel real. Nothing felt real. They took my picture with one of those oversized checks. I requested anonymity. They granted it. The money would be in my account within 2 weeks. Howard stood beside me through all of it, a steady presence. When we walked out into the afternoon sunshine, he asked, "How do you feel?" Like I just sold my son for $2 million, I said. Marietta, I know it's not like that, but that's how it feels. We found a new home that afternoon. Lakeshore Commons, a 55-plus community 40 minutes north. Not a nursing home, not assisted living. A real community of people who chose to be there. The condo had 2 bedrooms, a small balcony overlooking the lake, and windows that let in so much light it hurt my eyes. I'll take it, I said. The realtor looked surprised. Don't you want to think about it? See other options? I've been thinking for 68 years, I said. I'll take it. For 3 weeks, I lived in limbo. The money appeared in my new bank account like magic. Suddenly, impossibly there. I stared at the number on my laptop screen until my eyes blurred. During those 3 weeks, Raphael called 14 times. I let every call go to voicemail. The messages evolved, from apologetic to frustrated to angry to threatening. Mom, please, let me explain. This is ridiculous. We had one argument. Fine, be stubborn, but you'll need us eventually. Mom, the deadline is approaching. Have you figured out the condo situation? Call me back. The last message was different. His voice tight, clipped. I'm coming over tomorrow whether you like it or not. We need to talk about your situation. My situation. Like I was a problem that needed managing. That's when the letter arrived. From a law firm, Whitmore and Associates. Dear Ms. Goldwyn, we represent Raphael and Elizabeth Goldwyn in matters concerning your financial welfare and living situation. It has come to our attention that you may be making decisions without proper counsel that could negatively impact your future security. We request a full accounting of your assets and a meeting to discuss guardianship options to ensure your well-being. Guardianship. They were threatening to have me declared incompetent. I called Howard immediately, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. Those bastards, Howard said, his usual calm demeanor cracking. Whitmore. Same last name as the developer. Marietta, this is a coordinated attack. Can they do this? Can they really? No. They have no grounds. You're completely competent. But they're trying to scare you into compliance. He paused. Or they're fishing. If they get access to your finances, they'll discover the lottery money. Then what do I do? You move. Now. This weekend. And Marietta? His voice softened. You need to be prepared. This is going to get ugly. It's already ugly, Howard. It's going to get uglier. Moving day was a Saturday. The movers arrived at 8 in the morning. 2 men who didn't ask questions, just loaded boxes with efficient silence. I'd already packed most of my life into cardboard boxes. 37 years of memories, of accumulated life, and it all fit into a moving truck. That should have felt sad, but instead, it felt freeing. At 9:30, I heard footsteps pounding up the stairs. The door flew open. I'd left it unlocked for the movers. Raphael stood there, chest heaving, eyes wild. What the hell is this? He gestured at the boxes, the movers, the systematic dismantling of my home. What are you doing? I'm moving, I said calmly, as you suggested. Where? Without telling me? You're not entitled to know everything about my life, Raphael. His face flushed red. I'm your son. One of the movers paused, a box in his arms, clearly uncomfortable. Keep working, I told him gently. Then to Raphael, let's talk outside. We stepped into the hallway. Raphael's hands were clenched into fists at his sides. This is insane, he said. You can't just leave without what? Your permission? Without talking to me. Mom, I know Elizabeth said some things, but she was just what? Just planning to manipulate me into a nursing home so you could take my property. Just coordinating with a lawyer to have me declared incompetent. Raphael's mouth opened, closed. You know about that? Of course I know about that. I got the letter. Mom, that was Elizabeth's idea. I told her it was too far, but she... Stop. I held up my hand. Just stop. I'm so tired of the excuses. They're not excuses. Elizabeth has issues, okay? She grew up in foster care. She's insecure about money. She pushes too hard sometimes. And you let her. You let her turn you into someone I don't recognize. Raphael's eyes filled with tears. Real tears, I thought. Or was I just seeing what I wanted to see? Mom, I'm sorry. I really am. But you don't understand what it's been like. The pressure, the expenses, trying to keep up with... Keep up with what? You make 6 figures. You drive a BMW. You vacation in Napa Valley. And it's still not enough. Do you know what things cost now? What people expect? I know what I expect, I said quietly. I expect my son to love me even when I have nothing to give him. The hallway fell silent except for the sounds of the movers behind us. Where are you going? Raphael asked finally. That's not your concern. I'm your son. No. The word came out sharp, final. A son would have called me in 18 months. A son would have visited because he missed me, not because he thought I had property value. A son would have fought for me to keep my home instead of trying to ship me off to a facility 40 minutes away. I was going to visit. I wanted to. But life is complicated, and life is always complicated. Love isn't. Raphael stared at me, and for just a moment I saw the little boy he used to be. The one who brought me dandelions from the park. The one who cried when his goldfish died, and I held him until he felt better. But that little boy was gone. Maybe he'd never existed the way I remembered. Don't contact me again, I said. Mom, I mean it, Raphael, we're done. I walked back into my apartment. The movers were loading the last boxes. My life, reduced to cardboard and tape. Raphael stood in the doorway, tears streaming down his face. Please, please don't do this. I looked at him one last time. You did this, Raphael. You and Elizabeth. You made your choices. I'm sorry, he whispered. I know you are. You're sorry you got caught. The movers carried out the last box. I picked up my purse, walked past my son, and didn't look back. Behind me, I heard him sob, a broken, childlike sound. I kept walking. The Friday before I moved, there was a knock on my door, soft, hesitant. When I opened it, Elizabeth stood there alone. No Raphael. She looked terrible. Hair unwashed, mascara smudged, eyes red and swollen. Please, she said, can we talk, just 5 minutes? Every instinct told me to slam the door, but something in her face stopped me. 5 minutes, I said. We sat in my mostly empty living room, on the couch that would go to charity tomorrow. Raphael's leaving me, Elizabeth said without preamble. Filed for divorce yesterday. Said I destroyed his relationship with you, and he can't forgive me for it. I said nothing. I know you hate me, she continued. You should. I deserve it. But I need you to know this was my idea, all of it. Raphael wanted to visit you just to visit. But I pushed and pushed until what? Until he saw you the way I saw you, as a resource, as something to be managed and eventually inherited. She laughed bitterly. God, that sounds even worse out loud. Why are you telling me this? Elizabeth wiped her eyes. Because I grew up with nothing. I aged out of foster care at 18 with $200 and a garbage bag of clothes. I've been terrified every single day since then that I'll end up back there, homeless, alone, nothing. So you decided to make me homeless instead? No, God, no. I thought, she shook her head. I thought everyone operated the way I did. Looking for angles, for security, for the next opportunity. I thought that's what family was. Family is people who show up, who care when there's nothing to gain. I know that now. Elizabeth stood up. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know, Raphael didn't want this. Not at first. I broke him down until he couldn't see straight anymore. Raphael is a grown man who made his own choices. I know, but he loved you, really loved you, until I convinced him that love was a liability. After she left, I sat in the empty apartment for a long time. Did it matter whose idea it was? Did it change what Raphael had done, what he'd said, how he'd made me feel? No, it didn't. But maybe it meant my son wasn't completely lost, just lost enough. Lakeshore Commons was beautiful. That was the first thing that struck me when I moved in. Genuinely, unexpectedly beautiful. My new neighbors helped me unpack. Dorothy from next door brought cookies. Barbara from across the hall helped me hang curtains. Helen from the book club stopped by with a welcome basket. We're so happy you're here, Dorothy said. We need more people who actually read books instead of just claiming to. That first night, I stood on my balcony and watched the sunset paint the lake in shades of pink and gold. The water was so still it looked like glass. I'd spent $285,000 on this condo. I'd donated $50,000 to the library, started a $75,000 scholarship fund for single mothers, given $25,000 to a foster care organization thinking of Elizabeth's story. The rest, over $1 million, was invested. Howard had set it up so I'd have $5,000 to $6,000 a month for the rest of my life. More than enough. More than I'd ever dreamed. And yet, standing there watching the sunset, all I felt was tired. The second week, I joined the book club. Dorothy, Barbara, and Helen welcomed me like I'd always been there. The third week, I started volunteering at the local library. Children's story time on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The kids called me Miss Marietta and asked for extra hugs. The fourth week, I signed up for watercolor classes with an artist named Patricia. I was terrible at it. Completely, hilariously terrible. But Patricia made me laugh at my own attempts, and that felt like healing. 2 months after I moved, Raphael's letter arrived. The envelope was thin, the handwriting shaky. I almost threw it away without reading it. But in the end, curiosity won. Mom, I don't know if you'll read this. I wouldn't blame you if you threw it away. Elizabeth left me. She's with someone else now, someone with a trust fund. Our house is in foreclosure. I lost my job. The company downsized, and I was one of the first to go. I've lost everything. I know I have no right to ask, but I'm desperate. If you could just help me get back on my feet, I promise I'll pay you back. I promise I'll be better. I'm still your son. Please, Raphael. I read it 3 times. Felt sad, but not the way I expected. Not sad for him. Sad for who he could have been. I sat down and wrote back. 1 letter, final. Raphael, I received your letter. I'm sorry you're struggling. I hope this experience teaches you something I couldn't. That people are not resources. That love cannot be conditional. That family means showing up when there's nothing to gain. I've arranged for $5,000 to be sent to you through my lawyer. Consider it a final gift. Use it to get back on your feet. After that, we're done. What you did wasn't a mistake. It was a series of choices. You chose convenience over connection. You chose Elizabeth's manipulation over your own judgment. You chose to see me as property value instead of as your mother. I'm making my choice now. For 68 years, I've taken care of others. I raised you alone. I worked 2 jobs. I sacrificed my dreams so you could have yours. It's time I take care of myself. Maybe someday you'll become the man I raised you to be. The boy who brought me dandelions. The son who said he couldn't have made it without me. But not today. Maybe not ever. I wish you well, Raphael. But I wish you well from a distance. Mom, I gave the letter to Howard to mail with the money transfer. Anonymous. Untraceable. Final. 4 months after moving to Lakeshore Commons, I saw a flyer in the community center. Beginner sailing. All ages welcome. On impulse, I signed up. The instructor was a man named Captain James Thornton, 70 years old with kind eyes and sun-weathered skin. Our class had 6 people, all over 60, all terrified. It's never too late to try something new, James said on our first day. I fell in the water during my second lesson, went under completely, came up sputtering, and then I laughed. Laughed harder than I had in years. James helped me back into the boat. You okay? I'm perfect, I said and meant it. 6 weeks later, I bought a small sailboat, used, sturdy, perfect for 1 or 2 people. I named it Liberation. Good name, James said, helping me register it. Says a lot about a person. It says I'm finally free, he smiled. Best kind of freedom there is, the kind you choose. 6 months after leaving my old apartment, I had a life I'd never imagined. I woke each morning to the lake view, drank coffee on my balcony, wrote in a journal, a new hobby Patricia suggested. I volunteered at the library, sailed with James, who'd become something more than a friend, though we took it slow, painted terrible watercolors that made everyone laugh, hosted book club discussions about novels that mattered. I had friends who liked me for myself, who didn't know about the lottery money, who called just to chat, who remembered I hated lavender and loved Earl Grey tea. People sometimes asked if I was lonely. I'm alone, I'd say, but not lonely. There's a difference. Being alone means you're by yourself. Being lonely means you're with people who make you feel empty. For 18 months, I'd been desperately lonely, waiting for a son who'd forgotten I existed. Now I was peacefully alone, surrounded by people who chose to be in my life. I knew which one I preferred. One evening, 6 months and 3 days after I'd left my old life behind, I sat on my balcony watching the sunset. The sky was doing that thing where it turned impossible colors, pink and orange and purple all at once, colors I could never quite capture in my watercolors. I thought about Raphael, wondered where he was, how he was doing, hoped he was learning his lesson, but not holding my breath. I thought about the lottery ticket, $3.2 million that I'd kept secret for weeks, terrified of what it would reveal. I'd won the lottery twice, I realized. Once with money, once with truth. The second was more valuable. My grandmother's locket sat on my dresser inside, empty now. The lottery ticket long since claimed and cashed. But the locket remained, a reminder of what mattered. Family isn't always blood. Family is the people who show up, who care when there's nothing to gain, who love you at your worst and celebrate you at your best. Raphael had taught me that, just not in the way he'd intended. Tomorrow, I had a sailing lesson. James wanted to teach me how to handle the boat in rough water. "You need to know," he'd said, "so you'll never be helpless." At 68 years old, I was learning to sail, to paint, to live for myself. Better late than never. Some people wait their whole lives to be free. I'd spent mine being what everyone needed me to be. Wife, mother, librarian, caretaker. Now I was being what I wanted to be. And what I wanted to be was free. The sun dipped below the horizon, turning the lake to liquid gold. I raised my coffee cup in a silent toast, to new beginnings, to hard truths, to the courage it takes to choose yourself. Somewhere out there, Raphael was living his own life, learning his own lessons. I wished him well, but from here, surrounded by people who actually loved me, watching the sunset paint impossible colors across water that reflected my own new life back at me, I'd never felt richer. Not because of the money in my bank account, but because I finally knew my own worth. And no one, not even my own son, could take that from me again.